Namaste to all. A very warm welcome to you in this another episode of Wellness series by Heartfulness. Today we have something very important to explore and talk about. The topic for today's webinar is healing from crisis, from communication to compassion. This session, this episode is about moving from awareness and beyond conversation and looking at how meaningful and practical changes we can create in mental health at an individual, community, and a very systematic level. I have the honor to introduce our distinguished speaker today, Ms. Kalpana Sai. Ms. Kalpana Sai is a health psychology counselor with experience in spanning clinical wellness and fitness oriented mental health settings across India, Canada, and the US. She holds a master's in health psychology from the University of Hyderabad and is currently pursuing her MS in counseling psychology, clinical rehabilitation at Alabama at A&M University. Kalpana specializes in supporting individuals through challenges related to stress, motivation, emotional well being, and self efficacy, particularly in the context of health and lifestyle changes. She has worked with diverse population in both individual and group settings with a focus on promoting mental wellness and building emotional insight. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Kalpana.
Thank you. Thank you. The sun's
So,
shining bright on me this morning.
yes,
So
yes, I
I'm
was
feeling pretty
looking
good.
forward.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for introducing me today. Thank you.
So let me begin by asking you, how can we define a crisis? Is it limited to external events like flood and disaster? Or can it include internal psychological experiences that feel equally overwhelming?
Oh, absolutely. So the definition of crisis is essentially an event that requires the most immediate emergency attention, and that is of a deep gravity in nature. Now, this could involve natural disasters, it could involve war, it could involve political tension, it can involve even things in the corporate world like a Sev 1 or Sev 2 issue that requires all hands on deck, and it is quote unquote a crisis. Crisis can also include psychological events, and that's the focus of today, which psychological events or um, events that happen in someone's or a community's lives that results in them having intense emotional reactions, experiencing trauma as a result of experiencing this crisis, and also it leads to a very challenging and difficult readjustment to life after the crisis has happened. And this is just, I mean, there's more science that you can go into or jargon that you can use to describe what a crisis and traumatic events can look like. But at the core of it, it's this. The core concept or hallmark of a crisis or trauma is the difficulty in readjusting to life after that trauma. So you could have nightmares, you could have panic attacks, you can have intense anxiety and fear of go revisiting that trauma or going back to a an environment that reminds you of the crisis that you experienced or the trauma that you experienced. For the purpose of this webinar, the word crisis here today means it's going to mean a few things. It's going to mean traumatic events like the sudden loss or death of a loved one. For example, it could also encompass psychological trauma, like if you've been in an abusive relationship, either with family or with a loved one, or a significant other or any kind. It can also mean if you've experienced political and environmental unrest in whatever country or place that you're in. So it's going to mean a few things. But essentially, what we're talking about today is what do you do when you feel the repercussions of those events in your day to day life? That makes you feel like you can't function as a normal person, that you are a completely changed person who is struggling to navigate. And the the purpose of this is to also talk to people who have not experienced anything as traumatic or as crisis in level, right? But how do you hold compassion for people that have? And how do we as a community stay together and support one another? And at the core of it, the goal of today is just going to be to spread awareness on the importance of compassion, kindness, and mental health awareness. That's at the core of it. At the core of it. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yes, definitely. So it's like crisis is not just, the external world, but it can be
Yes.
internal as well as it's not just the disasters or the flood. It can be
Yeah.
anywhere, as you mentioned, it can be in your corporate, lifestyle that you have to be there at the
Yeah.
desk.
That was more of a joke, but a few
But I
like
think,
more core
yeah.
examples that can come up are if you've had a sudden, like I mentioned, loss or death of a loved one. And now grief, which is, this is referred to as grief, but grief does not have to be just if someone has passed away or whatever. It can also mean, for example, you suddenly lose your job after working at a company for 10 plus years, or even lesser. That can be very, like, layoffs and stuff that can happen, that can really affect you. Also, sudden relocations, like I mentioned, war, political unrest, and more importantly, like if you've had any other severe life adjustments. For example, if you have separation from in a marriage, divorce, heartbreak. These are some things that, while it might not be traumatic for everyone, it can be traumatic too, depending on how you perceive it. So, at the core of it, it's how do you experience this event? How do you perceive it? A lot of people are going to have different levels. So, yeah, that's the core of it.
So we can say it's more at an individual level.
Hmm.
So moving on to my another question. When we have intense emotions like anxiety or panic, what simple somatic or grounding techniques can help us manage these responses in the body?
Mm. Um, so stepping into solutions right now, right? We There are a few things that we can do to talk about, like, or to navigate this. The first one is to identify what level you are at. Now what level at for what? This is if you're experiencing a very intense emotion and you know that, okay, I am feeling so uncomfortable right now that I cannot function, I cannot do my work, I cannot even sleep, I'm sleeping way too much than I normally am, used to. Assess what level you are at. If 10 is the worst level that you have ever experienced of this emotion, and 1 is, hey, I'm good, nothing else, I'm fine, doing feeling really good. 1 to 10, where are you at? Are you at a 7? Are you at a 6? Are you at a 5? Are you at a 9? Or are you at like a 20 on 10? So the first thing is to kind of bring that emotion to awareness and ask yourself, okay, am I feeling this too intensely? When you know what level you are at, with time, you're going to know what you need to do. If it's a 6, okay, maybe like just a few gentle breaths or deep breathing. If it's at a 9, maybe you need something a little bit more, more not intense, but more, what's the word? Maybe you need something more comprehensive to help you bring yourself out of that emotion. So, all of these tools work differently for everyone, but the first thing is the scaling question. The second is label your emotion. What am I feeling? Am I feeling terror? Am I feeling anxiety? Am I feeling hopeless? Am I feeling. Fill in the word and identify the word. So, identify the emotion. The neuroscience behind this is when you try to think about what you're feeling and try to put a word to it, you're activating the prefrontal cortex, which then shifts activity from your amygdala. Amygdala is responsible for your emotional reactions and assessing stress in your environment. So there's a lot of activity there when you're feeling high intense emotions, but when you label it, or when you do the scaling question like we mentioned before, you're bringing more activity to this brain, which then reduces activity in your amygdala to some extent. So these two can absolutely help. But to talk about some grounding techniques, the first one that I always swear by is box breathing, and we're going to do it here together as a live demonstration. So, wherever you are watching us right now, take a, just take a seat, get comfortable, and or do it standing. Who cares? Whatever you want. So, you basically inhale and you form a box, and you're gonna hold for 3 seconds. So, Kriti, you're gonna do this with me, okay? So, we're gonna
Definitely.
start by inhaling. Inhale, one, two, three. Hold, one, two, three. Exhale, one, two, three. Go again. Inhale, one, two, three. Exhale, one, two, three. Oh yeah, I missed the hold. Hold and then exhale. Okay, so the point is that you're inhaling, holding, and then exhaling. Do you have any thoughts? What did you experience when you were breathing like that?
So I think that awareness from getting that all the tension and everything shifts the focus towards that particular
Mm,
breathing. That okay, we are
absolutely.
doing something and we are being mindful of what we are doing.
Yes. So the concept of you moving your finger and looking at your finger and forming that is a way to kind of bring yourself to the present in terms of grounding yourself. But also, breathing can really help shift your sympathetic activation to parasympathetic activation. Now, what are these words? Sympathetic activation is when your nervous system is primed for preparing for any dangers in your environment. So your heart rate is going to increase, blood is going to go to your limbs, so because you need to be prepared to run and escape, because this is from an evolutionary perspective. So sympathetic mode basically means, oh my God, there's danger. I need to be active. Parasympathetic mode is, okay, there's no danger. I can chill. I can focus on digesting my food, breathing normally. My heart rate is normal. Everything is kind of balanced. So breathing can really help with shifting that, experience. The next one is what I love, one of my favorites. It's basically the concept of self soothing. Now, when you are having very intense emotions, you want to cry, you don't know what to do, you're feeling like it's the end of the world. Um, Although, yeah, you know that, okay, this feeling isn't going to last forever, it is really difficult to move out of it sometimes. And I completely understand when that does happen. The concept of self soothing basically means, how do you comfort yourself and soothe your body, your mind? How do you kind of comfort yourself through the emotion? We're not trying to fight the emotion, we're just trying to make ourselves more comfortable and try to move away from that discomfort, even by 2%. So, my favorite formula to doing this is the five senses for self soothing. So, take your five senses and pick an item that would help soothe each sense. So, for example, smell. Do you want to light a candle, maybe? Or do you want to go take a walk so that you could smell, smells of your city? Or if you're near a forest, you could smell a forest,
That
or
fresh
flowers
morning
nearby,
smell.
morning smell, or the smell of your morning coffee, or whatever it is. So you can pick something to do that would entice your smell sense or olfactory senses. That's one. Then taste. Okay, do you want to make something? Do you want to cook something? Or do you want to eat something that's comforting? I say this with caution because also food can become like an emotional attachment and also lead to food addiction, but that's a separate conversation. But you want to make something warm and comforting for you, or eat something warm and comforting for you. Taste. Then we have touch, right? This can be anything. Hey, do you want to change into something more comfier? Like maybe you're wearing your work clothes or something more uncomfortable. Change into pajamas. Do you want to take a shower? You know? Shower is also like, tactile because you're feeling the water on your body. So these are, I'm just giving examples. You can come up with something that is really unique to you, but this is just an example on how to think about it. If you also have someone that you have, like a friend, family, loved one that you trust, can you ask for a hug? That's also touch. That's also touch related. And hugs do release oxytocin, which is a hormone that improves well being, but also helps us feel closer to other people. So that's one. We covered smell. We covered smell,
Taste
taste,
and
and touch.
yeah.
Hearing. Okay, do you have some music that you like listening to? Do you like listening to bird sounds? Do you like going on YouTube and playing whale sounds? Any nature kind of sound? Do you like listening to rain sounds? Technology has enabled us to access a lot of different kinds of media, both good and bad. But moments like this is when we can mobilize on that. And so, sound is just hearing anything that brings calmness to you, even the flowing sound of flowing water or anything. And YouTube has so much of that. Spotify
Exactly.
also does, Apple Music also does. So, you can tap into any of these platforms and just listen to something. Or if it also means calling someone that brings you comfort, just hearing their voice, doesn't matter. So, hearing, and then what am I forgetting? Sorry.
I think we have covered smell, taste, tactile, sound, and the fifth one. Um,
Oh my God, my mind is blanking.
that I think.
What? We have five senses. At the core of it,
I
this
think
is just,
seeing.
oh
uh,
my God,
Yeah,
seeing.
seeing.
Why? Okay, hey, it is morning. It is the morning for me. I've not even finished my green tea. You guys are gonna
Completely to
forgive
be
me.
understandable.
Okay. But
Totally.
yes, seeing. Okay. Now, this can be, hey, do you want to watch an episode of a show that brings you comfort? No, or makes you laugh? Or do you want to watch a video of puppies fighting? or or just like playing? Do you want to maybe again take a walk and maybe get a view of your city, or where you are at? Or do you want to just maybe shift all the lighting in your room to something more dim or whatever? It can be anything. Um, think of things for you. And it's important for all of us to think about these things when we're not having those emotional waves so that we already have something ready in our mind instead of having to pick something when we're anxious or in those emotions. Because in that moment, it's going to be difficult for you to actually, do it. So think about these things right now if you're not having these emotional waves. Also, think about something that aligns with you, who you are, and your culture. And because that's going to help you connect to what I'm saying right now. If it's not a candle, is it agarbatti? You know? If it's not if it's not a candle or agarbatti, is it putting jasmine flowers in your hair? It does not matter. Find things that are culturally appropriate for you. I guarantee that these tools are not just for the West. It's not just a foreign concept. As an Indian myself, it is so imperative that we take care of ourselves in a way that's culturally relevant to us and not just something that we hear in media, but just something that we know that makes us comforted. Like filter coffee has a different smell than normal American coffee. So I love
I
the smell of
do
filter
agree with
coffee.
that filter coffee.
So, yeah, so find things that are relevant to you and culturally more aligned to who you are. So, yep, that is the senses for self-soothing. The next one you can do is the 5 4 3 2 1s, right? You still use the same senses, but so what you're going to do is name five things you can see in your environment. Can I see a fan? Can I see a lamp? Can I see a laptop? Can I see a tree in my window? Five things you can see. Four things you can smell. Or, I don't it can be any sense, but you could just pick your sense, right? Four things you can smell. Three things you can touch: a book, I have a t shirt somewhere here lying around. And then two things you can taste. Now, that is up to you. You can just taste something if you want. Go have a sip of water, go drink something. And one thing you can hear. So, this is a grounding tool that can help you orient yourself to your environment, come back to the present moment. That's one. And what do I have next? If you can't do any of these, start with one question. What is one tiny thing that I can do that'll help me feel at least 0.5% better than I already feel right now? Even if that's just getting up and going to a different room. Great. Ask yourself that simple question. If you can't do any of these things, it's fine. Just ask yourself that question. I noticed that for me personally, that question has been super effective um, in just bringing yourself out of, you know, a, a cycle of ruminating. And last but not least, reach out to someone if you have that kind of figure in your life. Call someone that you trust. Talk to someone about it. Someone that you do feel is a safe space for you. But more importantly, it is okay if you want to seek out professional help. So I'm going to conclude by this answer by just talking to you a little bit about who to go to. I would always recommend starting by going to a counselor. Okay, and these are people that are professionals that are going to help you even adjust to these events, even if they're not traumatic to you. They're going to help you, adjust to some life events like grief, loss, anxiety, these emotions, right? But also, if you have more severe symptoms, especially because we're talking about trauma here, which can show up as PTSD and post traumatic stress disorder and complex post traumatic stress disorder, right? Um, Medication is not something that we need to be worried about or scared about or stigmatized about. Medication can help you reduce the symptoms temporarily so that you can then go to therapy and figure out and seek professional counseling to actually help process everything so that eventually down the road you might not need to have medication. But if you're experiencing symptoms of nightmares, panic attacks, anxiety, flashbacks, all of these situations that are extremely uncomfortable for you, if you're not going to at least be open to the option of medication, it's going to be really difficult to kind of move through it. So, I'm going to leave you with this. Don't be afraid of having or taking medication to help with severe symptoms. Now, only take medication if your psychiatrist prescribes it for you, but it can help you reduce the symptoms so that you can work on everything else in the meantime. And it can help manage the emotions. So, yep, these are a few tools that I did want to talk about. Something that we, I think, yeah, the next, that can move on to the next thing. But yeah, these are a few things that I
I
wanted to
think
share with you
these
guys.
were actually amazing. Doing the box breathing and, that question, like which one of these I can do to make myself come to the present.
Yeah,
So, and then you moved on, at least that medication stigmatization, that was
yeah,
really like it was
yeah,
necessary right now
yeah,
because people often think that, okay, medication is something, either they just run away, either
yeah,
they directly go to psychiatrist, for the
yes,
medication. They don't seek
yes,
a counselor. And then
yes,
it's very difficult for even once they break that, it's very difficult, to come
yeah.
back to that. So I
And
think
it's
that
not
was,
the end all be all. Like your
yes,
problems do not go away just if you take a Xanax.
yes,
They do not go away.
yes,
They're there, and you're having these reactions because there might have been some events in your life that are deeply, deeply affecting you. So, yeah, medication just helps calm the first wave of, these intense reactions. But
I
yeah.
think that was really necessary for us to know that, yes, what
Hmm.
medication actually does,
Yeah.
and combining it with counseling will give much more better results.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, moving on to another one. So, how can we create safe and non-judgmental space for vulnerability change, the way people experience crisis?
Okay. Um, So essentially, what this question is talking about is how do we, what is the kind of impact of having judgment free spaces that impacts vulnerability and how people maybe experience crisis. Is that right?
Yes, yes, like
Okay.
in the vulnerability space. How can
Oh,
it be
I'm so, yeah,
non-judgmental?
I'm very, very passionate about this answer because I think when people are talking about certain things and talking about their own struggles and talking about their own experiences, it helps remind other people that, hey, I'm not the only one in this world that has experienced this. Because when we experience crisis and trauma and how we process it, oftentimes it can feel like we're the only ones that experience it. Again, exceptions are if we've experienced political trauma, war related trauma, or natural disasters. Those are more community experienced because we're experiencing it all at the same time. Psychological trauma or emotional trauma can also be experienced as a community, right? However, in because of the way things are designed, we might not really know that other people are talking about it. For example, for people who have experienced sexual trauma, there are not a lot of forums where we talk about it and we're proud that we experienced this, right? Because a lot of the times, and a lot of research does show that people who have experienced sexual trauma or some these kinds of traumas that are very individual or personally experienced, there's a lot of shame that's associated to it. So a lot of us don't talk about it at all. We keep it under the wraps. And so when we're having and encouraging conversations about crisis and trauma and mental health, we are giving space for people to we're allowing them to be themselves, and we're allowing them to reach out and also know that, hey, I'm not the only one that's experiencing this. I'm not alone. And the experience of not feeling like you are alone is crucial in when it comes to recovering, because then you realize that, hey, I'm not a bad person, I'm not a faulty person, I'm not a damaged, broken human. I am someone that's experienced something like all of these other people, and I'm going through it myself. Which is why you see groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, or, support groups for addiction or mental health illnesses or disorders and experiences. These kinds of groups are so healing, because you're not only speaking to a professional who is your group moderator, who is also a therapist or a counselor, you're speaking to a group of people that have your shared experience. And it can be really healing to know that I'm not the only one. So, to add to the list that we were talking about before, go to judgment free spaces. For example, visiting a counselor, but also support groups that are moderated by licensed counselors or credentialed counselors. So, group spaces, support groups, self help groups, all of these things can help you build community within your own experience. But more importantly, I want all of us, especially those of us who have not had something to say that, oh, has been traumatic for them in their life, right? Or has experienced a crisis in their life. I want you to really sit and think about the role you play in letting the people that are in your life know that you are a safe space, right? Imagine if parents started, and some of them, many of them do, but I'm talking about all of us, all parents. Imagine if all parents sat down with their kids and actually spoke to them about how, hey, it's okay if you're feeling this way, it's okay if you're feeling like that. Imagine if we had more mental health conversations at home, within families, within communities, within groups. With that, it also means, okay, a lot of people then believe that it's okay to get help. What that means is early diagnosis, early treatment. What does this mean? It means, hey, your counselors can address your needs more quickly, or your psychologist can address them more quickly. You're not going to wait until your entire life falls apart. Or, for example, you lose your job because you're not able to function day to day. You're not going to wait until the nth level until you get help. And so, having conversations means early reaching out for help, early diagnosis of what you're dealing with. And diagnosis doesn't always mean, oh, you have a mental health illness, even though that's not a wrong thing. It just means, hey, I think you're dealing with a lot of grief. I think you're dealing with a lot of anxiety. Diagnosis and then treatment. Okay, this is what we can do about it. So, that's what I feel about the role of having judgment free spaces. And this is on every level of operation. This can mean from family to government. I think having more conversation and shaping public policy around welcoming mental health as a conversation and treating mental health illness and disorders with kindness and compassion and seriousness can be really important. Uh, a mental health illness is no different than you having cholesterol or high blood sugar or you breaking an elbow. It still can affect your day-to-day functioning. Yeah. So that's
I
that's my 2 cents on it. What
That
do you
was
think?
really, really that insightful and very deep because, as you mentioned, it should start early. Like the parents should sit with the child, like, okay, it's okay if you're feeling like this. We are here to support you, right? The government should give spaces to people. Like, it's okay to feel like that, and it's okay that you won't be getting judged. This first thing is to start from there. I think
Yeah.
it was really deep when mentioned regarding the family. Because
Hmm.
family is something I think everybody, one way or the other, it's not just in India, but everywhere, they make click that yes, it
Yeah.
should start from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's painful because
Yes.
a lot of if as parents we're not allowing conversations and we if you look at your child having a certain diagnosis as a personal failure on your part, that is something that you as a parent have to deal with.
Yes.
But this, I can tell you, countless people have been lately diagnosed because a lot of parents do live in denial, and
Yeah.
it's understandable. Like, I don't want to believe that it's my kid that can be having this kind of diagnosis, and
Yes.
by kid I mean a child of any age because we
Yes.
never stop being
Yes.
children of our parents.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Exactly.
um it's so it's painful to see that because hey, you could actually be helping your child if you're enabling them to talk about this and seek help when they need it, right? But a lot of people then live with their disorder under the wraps or with their emotional experiences under the wraps, even if it's not like a mental health diagnosis. Yeah, so mhm.
That's really, I think it's something that for me as well as a personal thing, it touched me personally as well.
I'm glad to know that.
Thank you so much. So moving on to the other, what role does self-compassion play in recovery from trauma, and how does it differ from self-pity or self-indulgence?
Okay. I want to start off by saying that like we can extend compassion and kindness to, and this is more in connection to our previous conversation, but it does not, no one can avoid trauma, right? That's the nature of it. It is traumatizing. If anyone wanted to, if you got into a car accident and you suddenly were paralyzed from waist down, it is traumatizing. You can't avoid it. You can't, it's inevitable if that is what your life leads to, right? And so when I mention that, hey, we talk about things and we talk about, awareness and be kind to other people because we don't know what they're experiencing, I just mean, hey, hold a safe space in case people hold it. Just just having kind conversations does not mean you can relieve the suffering of someone, because sometimes that's just something people have to experience for their own selves. But the role of compassion today in this conversation is, how do we help relieve the suffering of someone else, even though it might not, help them get rid of that crisis or the trauma altogether? How do we help them through what they're going through? Okay, so that's the definition of compassion. How do we be kind? How do we help out? And what is that? How is that different from self pity? So that's compassion. But when we go to self compassion, This is more so for people who are experiencing these emotions or experiencing these events. If compassion means helping relieve the suffering of other people, self-compassion means helping yourself, relieving yourself of your suffering in whatever you can, in whatever way you can, right? The difference between empathy and compassion is empathy is I put myself in your position and I feel what you feel, right? Compassion is I basically do something about it, from that space of empathy. But pity is this, we're going to put pity over here, empathy is over here, self compassion is over here. Pity is you feel sorry for someone. Now, what this means is that you're kind of, imagine this, you're looking at them from a glass window and you're not even connected to their story. You just feel, oh, you poor thing. I'm really sorry for your experience. It still helps, but it's not empathy where that is, hey, that must feel so disorienting. That must feel so insufferable. I'm sorry about that. That's still, you're still saying, I'm sorry about that, but you're feeling empathy, as in you're feeling what someone else is feeling. And yeah, and self compassion we covered is you acting on it. Now, what does this look like when we're talking about self compassion to us? Self compassion to us basically means, like I mentioned, helping yourself with suffering. I mean, making yourself feel a little bit better. But self compassion means extending kindness towards yourself and saying, hey, I am worthy of being gentle as I go through this experience. I'm worthy of having love and kindness given by me to me. A lot of the times we think that when we have these experiences, we end up feeling a little critical about ourselves that, hey, why am I like everyone else has it way worse? I should not be feeling this. I should not be doing this. My pain is nothing compared to people in other areas or other countries or whatever, right? Um, we end up being really critical of our pain. Oh, this pain is my fault. And like I mentioned, a lot of people who experience sexual trauma often do feel like their trauma is their fault, even though it is not. It is absolutely not. So, a lot of the times when we are experiencing these intense emotions, you might find yourself feeling a little critical, right? Oh man, you should have done this better. You should have done that better. Why didn't you do this? Why aren't you doing that? Your life is falling apart. You're not doing things right. You're going to lose your job. You're so lazy. You're unmotivated. You're always crying. You're always just, you can never be at peace. Do you see how fast I'm going, right? Like, fast I'm going, how intense I'm getting. Oftentimes, our thoughts can also feel like that, right? That they just keep coming one after the other, taking jabs at
It
who you
doesn't
are
stop.
just because it doesn't stop. And this, you'll notice, is often associated with the feeling and emotion, right? Which is why I say, hey, label it, call it out, say what it is. Um, this can feel really burdening. So, the role that self compassion here has to play is you first start by recognizing that, hey, I'm wounded right now. I'm in pain right now. I'm struggling and I'm going through something right now. And that means I am hurt. And so, when we first start with that, we realize that, ouch, I'm in pain and I actually need to help myself. So, for example, you're going through a heartbreak from a relationship, separation from marriage, or through just your boyfriend or girlfriend or partner or significant other for like a few years or whatever. It's hurts. But the more you move through this experience not acknowledging how much it hurts, the more you're just going to keep pushing it down. And then these thoughts are going to keep coming because your brain is trying to tell you something, but you're not taking its signals that, hey, we need to pause. We need to slow down a little bit right now. We're not doing okay right now. We need to take a break a little bit. Okay. So the first step is ouch. This hurts. And all of this information on self compassion I draw from Dr. Kristen Neff. So please feel free to read more about her work.
I think that would definitely be
Yeah.
very nice to do.
Yeah. And the second one is being mindful about what you're experiencing. Now, this can go back to our second question of this webinar. Okay, what is happening in my body right now? Am I feeling unsafe? Am I not feeling safe in my body? Just, I feel this palpitation. I feel tenseness in my shoulders. My fists are clenching. Be mindful about what you're experiencing. Now, for people who have post traumatic stress disorder or experience trauma very intensely, I would talk to a therapist about this or a counselor about this because sometimes being too mindful of your experience can inflate it too much, right? And make it so much more intense. Like if you were at a 9, it can could push you to a 15. So take this advice with medical discretion, um, but more so just take a note of what you're feeling and be aware that, okay, I'm feeling this way. And the third step is to understand that although this experience feels very personal to me, I'm not the only one. I am human. And even if no one else has experienced what I've experienced, maybe they're experiencing the reactions that I'm having to what I experienced. Does that make sense? Like maybe they might not have had this specific kind of loss of my sibling, but they do know what it feels like to have flashbacks, to wake up crying with no reason. Maybe they know what it feels like to just get sucked into my life and not have any direction or no goals. Maybe they know what it feels like, even though the situation is not the same.
Yeah.
So, self compassion just means fundamentally, am I being understanding to myself while I am going through something very terrible? No one should have had to go through it, and I went through it. Am I kind to myself? Or am I pressuring myself to just push through it, move through it, conquer, survive, which is also okay. But in the end, if you keep moving on without addressing things that are really affecting you, it's only going to kind of close up your world. But at your own pace, take your own time, in chunks, in bits and pieces. Try to experience and process what's happened. Um, there's a lot of technology and tools and evidence based treatments that people can avail to help them process trauma and crisis. And one of them, if you'd all like to look into, is EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization therapy and reprocessing. Sorry. This basically is a way for us to it's I'm not going to get into it, but it's a treatment method that is used to help process trauma. But also I would like to leave this conversation by saying that mental health is not a Western or colonial concept. It is something that exists in all of us and in our communities and societies. How we phrase it, word it, how we talk about it is of course different, right? So for someone who's an Ayurveda enthusiast, they're going to talk about mental health differently than someone who is a more conventional Western mental health professional, right? But mental health exists whether we like it or not. And that's what heartfulness also touches upon is the role of integration of the mind, body, and spirit. And the method that we follow here is through meditation. So, I would also recommend trying meditation, although it's not recommended for everyone, especially those who have intense symptoms pertaining to mental health and their specific diagnoses. But for anyone who feels comfortable sitting and trying meditation, try it. But also find other ways that help you feel connected to something larger than yourself. And your crisis can look like different things. I don't know if you've heard about the big T or little T. You can either have experienced something that is huge, like a single event, but it was huge, or you could have experienced tiny, tiny events that are innately, really unconsciously adding to your trauma. And that could be, for example, abusive relationships, for example, or extremely toxic workplaces, example, right? And then a big T is like a natural disaster or a car accident or anything. So, your crisis, what crisis means to you is going to be different. What trauma means to you is going to be different. But what's not surprising is a lot of us have experienced some form of trauma. And I'm not just saying, oh, stressful life condition. No, by trauma, I mean flashbacks, nightmares, intense anxiety, traumatic reactions. So please be kind to yourself. And who, for those of you that do not share this, please be kind to other people. And please keep having conversations. Do a lot of inner work on how what kind of biases you have against people who have mental health conditions. That is the only way we're going to make true impact and change is if more and more people are okay talking about it. So that
I
is
think
my 2 cents on this.
that
I do
line
want to give
really,
a I do want to give a disclaimer that this webinar might not have encompassed everything that is important to know about trauma. This is just an opening conversation. But yeah,
definitely. Trauma has more than just this. It's like it's more. I can just say it's more.
it's too
So,
much. Yeah, it's a lot.
but I think this will give, people a sense that, okay, we need to be aware something is going on. And it's not just every time external and all, but as you said, the big T and the small t.
Yeah.
So it can be small, small things that might be adding up to your trauma, not just the bigger events.
Yes.
So I think, as we mentioned, in the third of the, I think the third question, that
Mhm.
it starts with the family, it starts with us, and
Yes.
then, the self-compassion to differentiate that whether we are self-pitying ourselves, that, oh, I feel sorry for myself because, I'm not in that position, or I am not in
Yeah.
that situation, or whether we feel that it's okay. There may be, that self-compassioness within me, that, okay, something was not meant for me, or
Yeah.
I'm not being, able to be there because of some other reason. That's completely okay. So
Yeah.
I think it starts from us, as you mentioned, and it was
Absolutely.
really an amazing conversation with you, Miss Kalpana.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honestly
Thank you so
speaking.
much. It was such an
So
honor.
yes,
Yeah.
it was like personally, professionally, like it touched all the grounds, I will say. So I would
Thank
really thank you for joining this webinar, and I would thank the audience who's been listening. And,
you.
with this, we will conclude this webinar today. Thank you all for joining. Wishing you very good health and well-being.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.